And now for Talk Media News, made possible by our sponsor, Beth Ernest and Associates Real Estate. Beth Ernest's team of real estate brokers have been serving the Portland area for over 22 years, specializing in residential real estate, lots, and land. More at bethernest.com. We're pleased to welcome Tom Squitieri from Talk Media News, talkmedianews.com. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. You're a new voice to our listeners in the Portland area. Where are you coming to us from?
Well, I'm the Pentagon Correspondent from Talk Media News, so I generally come from there.
Are you in a bunker in Arlington?
No, I'm not in the bunker, but it feels like it. You know, I'm actually outside because cell phone doesn't work inside the Pentagon.
Fair enough. Good morning. This is TJ.
What do you have for us this morning, Tom?
You know, it's a busy Friday morning, both from the Pentagon perspective and in Washington in general. Of course, the sad news is that this is the second paycheck that most of the federal workers who are furloughed are going to miss. And you probably have as much anecdotal stories as I do about the pain and suffering it's undergoing, as well as the damage to a lot of the functioning agencies. We did a couple stories this week about how the FDA isn't doing checks, and, of course, the National Transportation Board isn't going out investigating air crashes and so on. So we have that to deal with. We have the indictment and arrest this morning of Roger Stone, one of President Trump's longest and closest and most trusted advisors. That's a big deal in that ongoing saga. And here at the Pentagon, we're particularly watching what's happening in Venezuela as the clock ticks on the order by President Maduro for U.S. diplomats to leave within 72 hours. A day has already gone by on that. Some have left, others are going to stay. And so that's an important story we're watching.
What is the traffic like at the Pentagon, considering the furlough? As obviously, it's not as many people as you would expect. Is it basically dead there? What sort of percentage?
No, the Pentagon is part of the Defense Department was funded last year, so it's not affected by the furlough. But when you say traffic, it's an interesting point that when I'm about a 30-minute drive from the Pentagon, and usually, it takes me an hour or so because of rush hour in the morning and evening. And now it's back to 30 minutes because the vehicle traffic is less in the D.C. area because people aren't commuting to work, in one reason, and they're not on the roads because they don't want to spend money on gas.
And also
so that's
the service
a
industry.
Very anecdotal, visible effect.
Right. Not only the commuters, but the industry that's built up around Washington that serves the government. Right. Yeah. That's
right. And even the public transportation system, it's called Metro here, it receives federal funding in part, and that's going to be, depending on how long the shutdown continues, the service will be curtailed on that a little bit even further because of the lack of funds.
Mm. Now, we know that there were two bills in the Senate that failed yesterday to reopen the government. We know that the White House has been preparing a draft for a national emergency over the last couple of weeks, including shifting some money from the Pentagon. Tom, do you have any thoughts or insights on what comes next to reopen the government?
Yeah, the bill you mentioned, declaring a national emergency, is focused on getting money to build the wall that President Trump is seeking. And that would come from disaster relief money. It would come from the Army Corps of Engineers projects that haven't started. The Pentagon doesn't like that idea of taking money from one silo and putting in another for the obvious reasons. Just because the fiscal year ends on September 30th, and so we're not even halfway through the fiscal year, and those projects are underway, or some are going to start. They haven't started yet just because of other issues. That means they can't be started, and they don't like to see that happen. I found it interesting that President Trump had withheld declaring a national emergency to see what happens with negotiations with Congress on those bills. And now, as you pointed out, neither this bill passed in the Senate yesterday. He's talking it up again, and the paperwork is being prepared for that declaration of national emergency. I don't have any insider scoop on when he'll drop that out or if he will. Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of distractions with Venezuela and other things, but he clearly is back on point to do that.
What's the general relationship between the DOD and the Pentagon and Trump? There's a lot of career employees that transcend administrations. But what sense do you get that what level of support for the president is there within the Pentagon?
I'd like to rephrase that, not because I want to duck the question, but I want to make sure that listeners understand my response. It's not so much the relationship with the president, but with the presidency.
Okay, fair enough.
And whoever is the president of the United States is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, as we all know. And there is an unbinding loyalty to the office of the president as the commander-in-chief. And so when President Trump or President Obama or President Bush or whoever it is gives an order, that's transmitted to the Pentagon, and it's implemented in the best way that they feel they can implement it. A good case in point is the Syria withdrawal that President Trump has ordered. There are people in the Pentagon who believe it's the wrong move at this time. Nevertheless, it's being implemented in a professional way that protects those who are going to be withdrawing from being vulnerable to attack, and trying at the best to support the allies who are going to remain in eastern Syria. So it's the loyalty to the office as part of the Constitution, as opposed to the individual. And then again, this is not saying they support or don't support President Trump. It's just, to clarify the way they look at things. There's a lot of decisions that are made that I've known the people there, and they're candid and they're unhappy with decisions not only of the president but of Congress. This is not just of all politicians.
Is there a smooth traffic of relations though? And a lot of jobs remain unfilled, and in a lot of cases you have people in administration jobs who have no qualifications for those jobs. So is the workflows fairly smooth between?
It seems to be fairly smooth. Secretary Mattis resigned, and then he was going to stay till the end of February, and President Trump told him basically you're done on December 31st. The deputy secretary has taken over, Patrick Shanahan. He was in a lot of meetings with Mattis. He knew what was going on. So that transition has been very smooth. And the people who have been elevated up, sort of like the dominoes in reverse, they all were people within the Pentagon who know what is going on. And so those issues, they don't need to be quick studies on anything. So that's made that transition at the top somewhat seamless.
Mm. Now, Tom, what do we know about the Roger Stone arrest?
It's a big deal, as I mentioned before. He's been accused of the indictment will be fully unsealed about 11 o'clock Eastern time today. Okay. He's accused of lying to Congress, of witness tampering, my words, talking to witnesses and trying to influence them, and also involved with the WikiLeaks issue of emails being used against Hillary Clinton and others. Those are all serious allegations and charges. And as I mentioned at the start, he's known Donald Trump for many, many, many years and has been his close, confident advisor. He's a person who I would have been looking at as a journalist, let's say, if I was doing stories on us. He'd be a wealth of information, even when you factor in his self-aggrandizing, because he likes to be at the center of attention. Even with that, he is an important person. So I'll be very interested to see how this unfolds, whether he cooperates at all, which I doubt he will, or what they have on him that would lead to any next steps.
Yeah. And can you give us the rundown of Venezuela? This feels like a story, obviously, that's developing, minute by minute. But what's at stake here? What's happening in Venezuela?
Well, okay, sure. It's unusual, but it's actually kind of clear cut. Maduro, the current president, won an election last fall that most people, including elements of the UN, think was not a fair election. Okay, and so the opposition leader, who is the head of the assembly there, has declared himself the interim president under some kind of clauses of the Venezuelan constitution. Some nations, like the United States, Canada, and others, have supported the interim president. Others, like Cuba and Russia and China, have supported Maduro. By doing that, Maduro ordered the U.S. diplomats out for 72 hours. Here's my unsubstantiated hunch. Okay, is Mexico was one of the nations that supports Maduro, but I think they're doing it as a diplomatic move to be the honest broker to try to arrange some kind of diplomatic solution to this. Let's just look down the road, because any peaceful solution will have to have Maduro agreeing with it, because the military in Venezuela supports him. So you're not going to have a military coup at this point. If you want him out, you have to have a diplomatic solution and a place for him to go. And that's why I think Mexico is still supporting him to give them the diplomatic powder to try to achieve some solution.
That sounds like a good hunch.
Some non-essential U.S. diplomats are leaving the country already, but they're not going to close the embassy as ordered by Maduro.
Well, that's why we pay you the big bucks for that kind of insight. Thanks very much. Tom Squitieri, welcome to the team.
Waiting. Like the federal workers, I'm sort of still waiting for that.
Welcome to the team. Thanks very much. Tom Squitieri, Talk Media News. That segment was brought to you by Beth Ernest and Associates Real Estate. Lots of land. BethErnest.com. We'll take a little break and get back into the news.
Here we are.
7:32 with the mighty X-Ray. I'm TJ. This is Emily.
Hey, TJ.
We're on, but the State of the Union is off.
It is off.
It's not happening for now.
It's not. I don't know what I'm going to do with my Monday night.
There's got to be
It
something.
really messes up my social schedule.
Something on
Come
Netflix.
On. Wednesday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent a letter to the president telling him he would only be invited to address Congress once the government is reopened. Trump responded by saying he would look for an alternative format for his State of the Union address. He also called Pelosi's move a, quote, disgrace.
It's a disgrace.
A disgrace. But then Wednesday evening, Trump stated that he will not give his speech until the shutdown is over. He tweeted, quote, there is no venue that can compete with the history, tradition, and importance of the House chamber. And on Thursday, Trump said he agreed to delay the address because Pelosi was, quote, actually reasonable. We have a clip.
Why did you decide to agree to Nancy Pelosi then?
Well, it's really her choice. I mean, I would have done it in a different location, but I think that would be very disrespectful to the State of the Union to pick some other place. I could have done it. I could have gone to a big auditorium and gotten 25,000 people in one day, and you've been there many times. But I think that would be very disrespectful to the State of the Union. So what she said, I thought was actually reasonable. We'll have the State of the Union when the shutdown is over.
25,000 people.
Yeah, he's done it. You've been there.
Yeah, you've been there, TJ. You've been there, haven't you?
I've been there many times.
About 1/4 of the U.S. government has been shut down, as we know, since December 22nd. The president maintains that any agreement to reopen the government must contain $5.7 billion for his border wall. While presidents are required to give an annual report to Congress, they are not required to do so in a televised speech in front of lawmakers.
But still, it's a document that commands immense respect. Don't diss the State of the Union. Don't mess with my budget report or interim report. She had him over a barrel, and he knew it. He blustered and huffed and puffed and couldn't bring the house down, so to speak. And she had him by the short hairs, and he knew it. And so now he's playing like, you know, it was something he realized all along.
Yep.
It's a disgrace. In other backing down news, Trump will consider ending the shutdown, he says, if the deal includes a, quote, prorated down payment for the border wall. After the most recently proposed measures to end the government shutdown failed in the Senate yesterday, Senator Lindsey Graham announced that he spoke with President Trump regarding a 3-week stopgap bill to reopen the government. On Thursday evening, Trump told journalists that he's open to a compromise with Democrats that reopens the government if it includes a, quote, prorated down payment on the border wall. Funding for the border wall has been a strong point of contention in ongoing efforts to reach compromise and end the shutdown. Although the president has said he's open to such short-term deals, which include his terms, no actual proposal is currently in the works. Sorry, I lost my mouth there. A spokesman for Senator Schumer said, quote, Senator Schumer and Senate Democrats have made clear to Leader McConnell and Republicans that they will not support funding for the wall, prorated or otherwise, end quote. Please explain to me, Emily, what a prorated down payment is. Is it prorated up or down? And how do you prorate something that is a fixed amount in the first place?
Right? All those are really good questions.
I'm going to pay you 10%, but I'm going to prorate that 10%.
I was watching the news last night and seeing the press ask Nancy Pelosi, will you give him a prorated amount? She's like, I don't even know what that means.
Good. I'm okay. I thought it was just me. I'm glad that that's gibberish.
Exactly. I was watching also some of the the comedians who cover our news, and one was saying like, yeah, it's as if there's a vendor and like you just had to put a down payment. Like it doesn't work like that.
It's a down payment, and then you give them a Groupon coupon, and you only have to pay half. Someone else picks up the other half of the tab for the down payment. It's or you use green stamps or something. Perhaps he's thinking of some kind of alternate payment plan.
Exactly. But the good news here is that this potentially looks like some kind of that he's on the road to some kind of compromise. It's been the 5.7, 5.8, some, the number has shifted, and now it's like, well, just part of it. Just get us part of it, and then I'll open the government. So there might be change of foot, TJ.
We'll see. He's certainly, backing away. And I think, yeah, he's probably given up the idea that he's going to get anything out of the Democrats at this point. Especially given the way that public sentiment has turned so sharply against him. That was a little unexpected to me. I guess that's what happens when you lose your paychecks. Although it's only 800,000 federal employees, it has a ripple effect around the country. And then all the things that the government pays for is affecting people who are not, strictly speaking, federal workers. A lot of housing people, landlords, or people who accept Section 8 vouchers or use Section 8 vouchers, they're having extreme trouble because landlords are saying, well, that's not worth the paper it's printed on. I'm not going to get my money from it. In case after case, things that rely on federal guarantee or federal money that you don't even think about half the time are not there anymore, and it's crippling a lot of people. I'm not sure. Well, I'm very sure that they did not understand what they were doing when they gleefully voted to shut down the government. Or Trump said, "Let's shut it down."
Absolutely.
I don't think he anticipated at all the level of pain he was causing and who he was causing it to and how they would respond to that. They still operate under this delusion that folks are saying, well, the wall's more important than, eating.
Right. And, and it's also shown us how out of touch some of our Congress folks are, and government employees who are saying, well, I don't understand why, if you miss a paycheck, why you couldn't still get your groceries, why you wouldn't
go out and take a loan. Get me a 9% loan.
Or,
Secretary of Commerce Ross.
Exactly. So, this will speed up, unfortunately, as the pain gets more intense. And I was listening to a podcast just last night, and they were talking about, when we saw the Muslim ban, when we saw some of the threats to women's choice, the uprising of us as community members was the kind of pressure that made movement, that caused movement. And so as people are starting to call their Congress folks, they're taking to the streets, they're taking to social media. That's the kind of pressure that is going to continue to move this along faster so that we can get the government back open.
Federal employees themselves, sorry to interrupt you, I saw federal employees themselves blockaded Mitch McConnell's office. It was either yesterday or the day before, and were cleared by arrest. So they themselves are taking to the halls of Congress and the seats of power to make their complaint. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see more.
Government deserves deserves better. Our communities deserve better than governing by shutdown. This has to stop. Absolutely.
Maybe we could talk to Trump's lawyer.
Michael Cohen is going to comply with subpoena to testify. The former attorney to the president will comply with a subpoena from the Senate Intelligence Committee to testify before that panel. Several media outlets reported yesterday that the testimony will happen in mid-February before Cohen starts his 3 years in federal prison. House Democrats have sought Cohen's testimony as one of their first high-profile witnesses of the year. Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis, announced that Cohen would postpone his scheduled appearance before the House Oversight Committee on February 7th due to, quote, threats against his family from Trump and his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Cohen's lawyer accused Trump and Rudy Giuliani of making public comments in interviews and on social media that fueled the threats against Cohen and his family. Davis said there should be a criminal investigation into Giuliani for witness tampering and intimidation. Cohen pleaded guilty to charges of tax evasion and lying to Congress last November, a plea elicited in part by Mueller.
So it's 7:40. We've been doing a lot of news, and we've just now gotten to the part where Cohen said he wasn't testifying because the President of the United States threatened his family.
It's true.
The President of the United States threatened a witness who was standing to testify against him, and that's buried somehow. I don't understand this world anymore.
I mean, what's it going to take? It feels like we're, just continue. Our standards continue to lower.
It's like he's Tony Soprano. It could be kind of bad for you and your fine parents if you showed up at court tomorrow.
There's so much in our president's history that is consistent with what we see now. It's just watching Rachel Maddow last night, who was talking about the relationship between the Trump business, the Trump Corporation, and Deutsche Bank, and the craziness of of Trump defaulting on loans, and then Deutsche Bank coming after Trump for the money, and then Trump suing Deutsche Bank because why? I mean, it's just there's so much craziness here. How continue to wonder. I mean, I understand, but how did this guy get in the White House?
It sounds like mob rule, and not the mob like that the French were having, like the mafia rule. No offense, against the Italian community, but I mean, this is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
The threat. How is that not the top story? He's threatening the witness who we know has the goods on him. We know he's got the goods on him. Someone else in politics has smelled or I'll just read the story. Florida Secretary. I'm trying
Do you
to
have
run
a welcome back Cotter
anecdote.
joke?
A joke. Probably not one that's
that helps with the transition?
airworthy or would help with the transition.
Okay.
I was just say in a separate situation where an official is facing obvious consequences for their bad acts, they've chosen a different tact and have immediately resigned. After only a month in office, Florida Secretary of State Michael Ertel resigned yesterday after a photo surfaced of him in blackface posing as a Hurricane Katrina victim. The photo was taken at a private Halloween party in 2005, months after Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. The newspaper, the Tallahassee Democrat, obtained the photos and shared them with the governor's office on Thursday. Ertel resigned that same day. The photo shows Ertel in blackface, wearing red lipstick, earrings, a New Orleans Saints bandana, and a T-shirt reading Katrina victim. Why was he also in drag? I don't understand that. When asked to comment on the photo, Ertel only responded, quote, "There's nothing I can say, and that's the first Republican in I can't remember how long who displayed actual shame. I have no excuse. There's nothing I could possibly say."
I hope that's what he meant by that statement.
Well, where do you think he went with it?
I have no idea, because I can't understand how anyone would do such a thing and think that that was okay.
Let's grasp it one last morsel of humanity. Imagine that he had enough shame to realize
that makes
I'm
me feel
busted.
better.
I am just flat busted. I'm out. Never mind. Sorry. He was just elected.
Right,
He'd had office for literally about 2 weeks. And then they should have really come up with a photo beforehand. That's not very good background work by his opponent. I didn't even know if he was opposed. You would assume so. The other races in Florida were well contested, so it would have been foolhardy to try to throw up a Secretary of State candidate against him. And if you couldn't find that, well, I don't know. Somehow, maybe They didn't source them. It came from the Tallahassee Democrat, but they don't say how they got the photos. In any case,
another headline: New York rolls back restrictive voting laws. Coming from Axios, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has signed a series of election reform bills. The legislation's attempt to amend some of the state's antiquated voting laws and expand access to the ballot box. New York's voter turnout rate has consistently ranked among the lowest in the nation. The new legislations include measures on early voting, pre-registration for those age 16 and 17, same-day registration, no excuse absentee voting, and consolidation of federal and state primary dates. Good news.
I think that's good news, and I wonder if those things happen as a result of Cuomo being forced to dismantle his centrist cabal that was deliberately placed there to block progressive initiatives. I think that's probably the case, and finally you have an actual Democratic majority that is working in concert, it looks like there. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. As we move closer and closer to 2020, voter suppression is on my mind, and so to see this happen in New York, it's a good
Certainly
story.
New York, I think we would expect that to be a fairly blue state regardless. But yeah, the more voters, the better. The ruling in Florida is the more important one to watch, I think, the one that validated voting franchise for felons. And the legislature in Florida is trying to monkey with that and make it more difficult and narrow the number of people. But so far as I can tell,
the people passed it.
The people passed it, and I think they're going to legislate hard to maintain that right. Oh, this isn't a fun story. The national parks are facing damage from the government shutdown because we are pigs and because there's nowhere to put your trash, I guess. There's no cleanup service, so people who are bringing in material goods are leaving those material goods there, and it's causing a disaster scene. Since the government shut down about a month ago, almost 16,000 Park Service employees have been furloughed, leaving a small number active for policing and security. Overflowing trash cans, out-of-service bathrooms, and trespassing are being reported at national parks due to the shutdown. On Sunday, the Department of Interior announced they would divert funds collected from entrance fees to pay for trash cleanup, restroom maintenance, and additional law enforcement. That doesn't seem obvious. However, the National Parks Conservation Association voiced concerns that using entrance fees would dip into badly needed fund from the Park Service maintenance backlog. Visitors could have devastating effects on national parks while they are understaffed. Not only is excessive trash and waste being left behind, but people can also harm wildlife by walking or camping in prohibited areas. Once the government reopens, park employees will be responsible for cleaning up the mess left by visitors, further delaying projects that have already been deferred. National parks officials are saying the parks should be fully shut down until the government reopens to prevent any further damage. That's probably the best way to go about it. But yeah, why not use the money that, I mean, if the trash needs to be picked up now, we'll fund the maintenance backlog. This is maintenance. I don't exactly understand the reticence there, but the essence of the story is that without folks to care for the parks, we are doing the parks harm. So probably in our own best interest, we should shut them down. Or
Yeah, I mean, the last time under the Obama administration, when there was a shutdown, the parks were closed. People were not available, from a safety concern, from, this situation that we're seeing right here. The backlog of trash and cleanup that's going to have to happen is just, that's not going to be fun.
Right. It's not like the museums in the Smithsonian. There, there's no one to work them, but we'll just leave the doors open, go ahead and have a look. We wouldn't do that. So we're going to get another quick break and then head across the ocean and talk some internationals. We'll head away from the United States because Venezuela is not really across any oceans from us, but we'll be back.